Hi, everyone. Welcome to elearnChat, where talk is knowledge. So we're not going to have quite the talk we expected today. We are in the missing guest formation. And hi, everyone, again. I'm Rick Zanotti, and joining me is Kirsten Rourke today. She is subbing for Don Mahoney, and we are in the missing guest formation.
Yes, which looks like this.
We actually had Joe Gonchi scheduled today. Haven't heard from him, so we figured he got stuck somewhere, couldn't make it. We'll have him on another time. So anyway, hey, Kirsten, how are you today?
Good, how are you?
I am doing great. And as always, it's another early morning out here.
Yes, the joys of live broadcasting.
Yeah, well, we've got new dogs, and we've got...
right, the two new puppies.
They're about, we think there's somewhere between 3 and 5, probably more like 3-ish. And they're real sweet. 2 girls. We've got 2 sisters, and one's bigger, one's a little smaller, and they're just adorable. So they're fun. They're fun. We're still trying to get them used to the house. It's only been a week and a half, so it's taking a while. And actually, they were not housebroken as promised.
Oh,
so that's
not good.
There's a lot of towels over our house right now. It's not fun.
I'm glad I'm visiting virtually right now.
That's right.
Yeah. I found out something odd. We're on vacation, as you know, right now, and so we've been running around everywhere. I found out my son is allergic to dog saliva.
Interesting.
We didn't realize this, but we went over a friend's house, and their dogs licked him like crazy, and he started to turn pink and swell. And we got Benadryl in him, and he was fine. But it was sort of apparently there's an allergy there.
It's interesting, and it may be just depending on the dog.
Yeah, well, I mean, my mom's dog's over all the time, but my mom's dog is not a licky dog because it's my mom's dog, and she would not permit such a thing. She's very clear about her expectations.
That's why you don't lick people anymore when you first meet them, right? That's part of it.
I've been very clicker trained by my mother. Yes.
I could just see it click.
I respond to treats.
Oh man, next time we see you, we're gonna get some treats. That way, it's like.
Oh, I swear, my mom is such a dog person. At this point, I would not be surprised at all if she buys a collar and gives it to me by mistake. It's like, here you go. Oh, wrong one.
Wrong one. Put it on your kid instead. Yes.
Yeah, this is why my mother will never watch this show. Because I will never permit it. Do you have a podcast? No,
not at all. What are these things you do? They're just pictures. Don't worry about it.
Oh, just pictures. They're stills. Not talkies. No.
Oh, that's it. This is the show she's watching, I'm sure.
No. Well, I haven't even got her on Facebook, so I'm good. I'm good so far.
Your dad will tell her.
It gives me many mediums where I can actually have free reign to speak my mind and not have to pay for it.
Oh, that's funny. Well, anyway, we didn't really have a topic planned, at least for you and I to talk about, so we're going to wing it a little bit. We were going to talk a little bit about storyboards.
Yeah, I want to tell you one thing first, because I also want to announce it in the next one. For those of you watching, because I know at least one person in the chatbot is watching, I'm going to be in the Create Now tour in Hartford on July 21st.
That's Hartford, Connecticut?
Hartford, Connecticut. So please, please, please come, because we have Adobe evangelists on the stage, and I get to be there, and I actually get to talk for a little while. So please come to Hartford.
Who's going to that one?
Please. So actually, I'm drawing a total blank as to which of the many, many evangelists it is. So let me pull that up for a second. I'm like, I remember that we're all doing it. Now we're doing which one? So let me pull that up for half a second.
That wasn't the one with Terry White, was it?
No. Terry came to Boston.
He was in Boston, okay.
And it was Terry and, of course, I had all these names in my head right before you asked me, and now that we're on the air, I can't remember anybody.
Right. That's how it works.
That does. That is how it works. All right, I'm looking this up, so you should say something else while I'm looking this up, because I'm actually frozen here.
And we didn't bring out treats, so we couldn't give you anything to kind of stimulate the memory at the moment.
Yeah, those of you who missed the earlier part, yes, I'm my mother's child, and she's a huge dog person.
We don't even have a clicker on, so I can't even click to kind of stimulate saliva or anything.
I would not be surprised if the next time I see Leslie, she presents me with a clicker. I would not be shocked by that at all.
And Leslie's my wife.
Yes. And Leslie has an awesome sense of humor.
Is that what it is?
Oh, so speaks the man who's been married how long?
October, 30 years.
Okay, so 30 years in one day. Good job. No, only kidding.
No, October.
All right. My internet is not loading well. I will pull it up and mention it at the end of the show.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yes. So, storyboards.
Storyboards.
So we actually were just on a project doing storyboarding, and it's always interesting doing storyboards between multiple people because the translation is sometimes of concepts is interesting.
Well, yeah, and that particular project was a little bit difficult because the client had a totally different idea at all times of what needed to be done. So that was just kind of an interesting thing. Storyboards are difficult, period. I think the hardest part is if you use a 3-column type storyboard where you've got on the left your programming notes, whatever kind of call outs you want. In the middle, maybe a sequence of things that are happening on the page, A, B, C, D, things that are happening on a slide. And on the right, your narration, which is usually either your voiceover narration or the captions that they read, or both, if they're different. And at the top of the storyboard, usually you can have a screenshot or a mock-up of what a scene could look like. More often than not, people have the hardest time really figuring out what you're trying to convey.
Do you think they do better with seeing a demo instead of... I mean, the developers can go obviously off the script.
And there are some tools like Storyboard Quick, which allow you to mock up scenes. So you could mock up a scene of 2 people talking, or of you're outdoors, you're in a car. So at least it gives you a little bit of a visual representation. And then you run into the problem, and we had this on one we did for Adobe actually. We had it all storyboarded, it looked great, and the person goes, I don't like the graphics. That's not the graphics you're getting. That's the mock-up. I don't like the graphics. No, it's not. No,
it's not the graphics you're getting.
The graphics you're getting. It's what you're seeing to give you an idea of what you're getting. I don't like the graphics, and it was this. Okay, so we finally got through that, and then we gave her the real graphics. At which point she goes, "I don't like the graphics." I just went, oh, God.
Well, there was there
are some like that, but
I put all the people in. And we got the feedback of, I really like it. Just take out all the people.
Take out all the people, which we wanted in the beginning.
Yes, we asked for in the beginning, and then, so it's fun. Well, storyboards are tricky because how do you convey the concepts without a storyboard unless you're going to a full demo mock-up?
Yeah, and then you wind up spending even more, and of course budgets are tight, so you don't want to go too much into a mock-up mode because then it gets very expensive. You don't want to write a storyboard they don't get because then it doesn't make any sense. The hardest part is really stimulating the imagination so that if it's only in writing, then depending on who you're writing the storyboard for, you have a chance 50-50 of them understanding or not. If they're readers, there's a good chance they'll probably understand what you're trying to convey. If they're not, it becomes a little trickier to convey in words what you're seeing as their vision.
Yeah, and one thing I'm glad that you were helping me with recently, I actually had a slightly different way of writing the scripting. What are your recommendations for people doing storyboards and writing out the voiceover part for the voice talent?
Well, that comes down to an age-old debate. Should the narration match the voice? I'm sorry, should the voiceover match the captions, what you're seeing on the screen? There's research both ways that if you do it one way versus the other, it'll work better. If you do voiceover matching narration or matching the captions, then you're just reinforcing it. If you do voiceover that doesn't match the captions, then you're adding a different element to the multimedia mix. The problem is, in this particular client's case, they don't have speakers on a lot of machines, nor do they have sound cards on these machines.
Yeah.
They have telephony cards. So as a result, it behooves us to match storyboard to voiceover. In this particular case, it didn't quite do that, so we're going to have to work around that.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, I actually hadn't clarified this with Rick beforehand, so I went based on what I used to do, which I will not do now that I'm doing stuff with Rick, which is have them not match, and have the voiceover part be fuller and more expansive than what you see on the screen.
I like doing that too. I agree with you. I think it's more engaging, and it keeps them a little more attentive. The problem is, in so many large corporations, they're in big rooms. They're in, they may not have headsets or speakers or whatever, and that's actually really quite common. You go into a typical customer support center, and the good chance is that you're going to have a PC with a connector to a telephony type system, but that doesn't give you PC audio. And so therefore they can't hear anything.
And I can't imagine sitting through an hour online with no sound.
And they do it all the time. And frankly, I think the learning efficacy of that is pretty much nil.
Yeah, I can think about 5-10 minutes, but after a while it's like, now on the other side of that though, there's the unnecessary sound. Right. Because I've been on stuff recently where they had background audio playing in between segments, and the background audio was so irritating that it was actually distracting, because you'd have these sections and then it would go into in between. I'm like, whoa, you could cool it down during the breaks there, guys, because all of a sudden it was this upbeat jazz stuff, and it was actually out of tune with the pace of the stuff, because the stuff was the voice talent was very measured. Had this great rich voice, and it was, now we're going to be doing this, and then in between you had these jazz clips, and it's like, guys, you don't want to have da 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 da, when you have this dignified voice talent.
It just it
doesn't match.
Throws people off totally. It's like, welcome to the training.
Now
we're going to learn this.
The first one I laughed through. The second one I was rolling my eyes. By the third one I'm like, oh, for the love of God, you people, and I think it was like 6 segments. So. Yeah.
But I tell you, storyboarding, we've been doing e-learning now officially since about 1995, so about 19 years. And it's still, I think, to a certain point, the bane of our existence. And it's not that people don't know how to storyboard or how to write for storyboards or any of that. It's getting the customers to understand what the storyboards say or do. And, if you get too technical in a storyboard, they're lost. If
you get too simple, they think you've forgotten stuff.
Right. Like for example, the one project we were on, the client wanted just the words. He didn't want any of the instructions or anything else. And then when he got that, he was confused. He goes, wait a minute, I don't get this. There's so much. And so it was interesting, because it's what they thought they wanted, and we wound up sending them the actual storyboards afterwards. And then the other issue is you're dealing with tools like Microsoft Word, or even worse, PowerPoint. And when you make revisions, in PowerPoint you're hosed, because revisions really don't show up. You can add sticky notes, I guess, but
oh god,
revisions are really hard to track in PowerPoint, because there's no revision tracking. I have to say something
about the PowerPoint thing to the audience.
Sure.
Rick warned me about this, and I did not realize how bad it was, because I'm not used to going between the PC and the Mac on PowerPoint stuff. I knew they were different. I didn't realize how badly the storyboards would shift.
Geometry is very different.
So I did the storyboards in Windows, then I opened them on my Mac and I saved them, not thinking about it, loaded them to the Dropbox folder, and when Rick opened them on his Windows machine, everything had moved. Everything.
Oh, it was even worse than that.
And fonts changed. I mean, everything was just...
It changed. And this was, I think we were using Articulate at the time on that project, and the whole geometry was off.
Yeah.
And we're going,
I had no idea. I didn't even realize I had done it, because I was like, oh yeah, I'll just open it and look at it, and didn't even think about the fact that I wasn't loaded into Parallels at that moment.
And it caused an issue.
And it caused an issue, which I found out later about, and I'm really, I owe Leslie like a huge box of chocolates I'm so sorry, I'm an idiot.
That would be dark chocolate.
Dark chocolate. And there's a place near me that I discovered recently that's called Chocolate Therapy. It's in Framingham, Massachusetts.
Interesting.
And it has really, really neat chocolates. Everybody should go there. It's very good.
Sounds good.
Yes, Chocolate Therapy.
But anyway, what happens there is if you are on a Mac, as many of us are getting on, very, very common to see Macs out there right now, even in the corporate world. We're seeing more and more of them. If you're using Office products, just don't even buy Microsoft Office for the Mac. It's a piece of crap anyway. It's badly done. It's useless.
As a Mac user, I have to say that I'm kind of with you on that, especially Outlook. I'm a hard Mac user, but honest to God, Outlook on the Mac is a joke.
Yeah, it doesn't work well. But if you go to Parallels and you've got Office, and it works just like Windows. So if you're going to use a Mac and you want Office, don't get Office for the Mac. Get Parallels or VMware Fusion and run Office off of your Windows side because it'll run perfectly. And
I recommend Parallels because their customer support is actually pretty damn cool.
They're good. Actually, they're in Boston, I think.
Well, the person I was dealing with wasn't, but I did Parallels. Something didn't happen the way I wanted. They sent me a survey, and in the survey, I just marked them as a 3. It was 1 to 5. And in the comments, I said, I wasn't thrilled with this. And they contacted me and said, what happened? How do we fix it?
It's pretty good.
And I was like, okay, you don't have to fix it. It's just a communication issue. And they're like, no, how do we fix it? And they went out of their way. I was really surprised because I'd been dealing with like Capital One, who's the opposite of that for customer service.
Right. Now, it's real interesting because Parallels was developed by a Russian guy. I think he's from the Ukraine, lived here for many years. He developed Parallels. He developed Acronis, which is one of the top enterprise-wide backup solutions for enterprise servers. This guy's sharp, and he did some other stuff before that, which was also very impressive. Guy's been around quite a while, and I believe they're out of Massachusetts. I'm pretty sure they are.
They probably are. I mean, like I said, the person I was dealing with, because it was online, I'm not even, I don't think they were local, but it was really surprising. I was very pleased, and I actually need to write them back and give them additional props on that because they were great.
So let's talk a little bit about kinds of storyboards. There's basically 3 types that we've ever seen out there. PowerPoint.
Yep.
Word. And there's different formats in Word people can use, and they can create forms and all sorts of stuff that I've seen in Word. And then really the last one is Excel or a spreadsheet where people create spreadsheet rows, each row being a slide, and then each column being part of that slide information, whether it's the text captions. Now, I find some people love the Excel format because it's fairly easy to just follow. You know what slide you're on, you just move, but you can't put any graphics in there or anything like that, at least not normally.
Not easily.
Not easily. It'd be a lot of work for people. But that's one way people do it, and then they usually have some columns for reviewers and checkoffs and things like that. But again, Excel doesn't allow for comments, per se, or
Excel has commenting.
For revision tracking? No. I don't believe they do revision.
Changes? Actually, I don't
think so.
I don't remember.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. They do have comments, but...
Yeah, so that makes Word of the 3 the best because you can track changes in it.
And I should mention to the folks who are watching, the Word storyboard that Rick uses and has me use, I actually do my screen mock-ups in Illustrator and then drop them into the Word piece because some people do their screen mock-ups in PowerPoint.
Right.
I actually find that really restricting for some of the stuff I want to do. I find my brain kind of likes to play with Illustrator, but it kind of depends on what you're doing. I mean, it's how much text there is, what kind of images, if it's preset images. I mean, I was drawing a lot of my own stuff.
Yeah. See, it's funny because I prefer PowerPoint to actually mock up images because you can get about 3/4 of the way with PowerPoint on drawing
That's
tools.
true.
They've got great drawing tools in PowerPoint.
That's true.
But of course,
That's
the issue
true.
with PowerPoint is, and people get into this all the time, if your course is not in PowerPoint, if you're developing, let's say you're using Articulate Presenter 13 or Articulate Studio 13, or you're using iSpring or Adobe Presenter, I think it's 9. Now, all of those, if you develop in PowerPoint, okay, fine, that makes sense. Everything you're doing is in PowerPoint. However, if you're doing your storyboards in PowerPoint, and then you move on to either Articulate Storyline, Adobe Captivate, Zebra Zaps, Lectora, whichever one you're using, then it may not translate as well because, again, geometry between PowerPoint and other things is not quite the same. There are changes because if you create a small graphic in PowerPoint, then you export it, it's huge. And people usually get thrown off by that. Now, you can fix that by setting up your pages correctly in PowerPoint to reflect the size of what you're doing. PowerPoint, unfortunately, measures in inches. Inches
Yeah, and it's
is
also
not a great way to measure, but
the pixel dimensions is a little weird on it.
yeah,
But,
you can
yeah,
get.
people don't normally change the PowerPoint size, and that's
They
actually
don't.
pretty easy to do.
Now, finally, in PowerPoint 2013, the default size is now 16 by 9, which again causes an issue on Macs because a Mac is 16 by 10. You know, you may not think that 1 inch matters, but boy, does it matter. It causes all sorts of stuff. But so you've got 3 formats. Which one works? You know, really, they all work, but what works best for your client is what's important.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's almost you almost want to have a client education of showing people that this is what this means, and it's frustrating. I almost want to do a little 3-minute mock-up and then have a downloadable PDF that's the storyboard that goes with it, so they can go, oh, this means that.
right.
You know, I almost want to do that. I should do up one of those someday and say, here, this is how you read a storyboard.
Yeah, and they're not hard to read. It's just that they are, for certain people, very confusing. Part of it's the imagination. You know, it's how do you stimulate the imagination so that they can see in their minds what you're writing.
Yeah.
That's tricky.
And I'm going to actually ask in the chat pod, because I know we've got e-learning folks in the chat pod.
What they prefer.
How do you do this? And I will see if we get.
And unfortunately, because
chatty today.
because we're in the missing guest formation.
Oh, this is the missing guest formation.
Yeah, here we go. That's our missing guest formation. Because we're in this formation, we didn't have a chance to really set up content for this. We would have had some sample slides and sample Word docs, so you could at least see what we're talking about.
Yeah, but if you Google e-learning storyboards and just go into images on Google, you'll see a bunch of stuff.
That's true.
There's a lot of good places out there, and I don't know about you. How do you find for mind mapping to get you started with a storyboard for concepts? Do you like that, or do you not need it?
I think it's good for the outlining.
I mean, not for the client to see.
No,
but I mean just for the.
Yeah, I think they're great. I think they're really good for just sitting down and doing a little bit of brainstorming. Put it down on a mind map, which can quickly give you an idea what your chapters are, what your lessons are, and just get it out. It's kind of a more visual story outline.
Yeah, I liked it. I played with it on one thing, and I went back recently and looked at it and was like, oh, I had forgotten I'd done that. I might do that again. I tend to use paper.
Okay.
I do sketch pads.
Yep. Okay.
I just doodle things in sketch pads, and I start drawing arrows and circles and boxes. And
You know, that's so 1990.
I know. I'm old. I did get busted on Facebook recently because I posted a picture of a Star Wars role-playing game that we did here at the house, and we had one person attending via iPad. And so I posted it and said, hey, look, gaming in 2014. And one of my friends went, oh, I was doing that in 2011.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, really? That's how you're going to do this? Back in the day? It was only 3 years ago, chump.
Back in the day, 3 years ago.
Back
which
in the
is,
day,
which
3
is
years
an
ago.
eternity in today's day and age.
And this is also somebody that I gamed with in 19, when we were young and nubile people.
Kirsten
Back
will
when you
always,
had to roll your own dice.
but just so you know, Kirsten will always be younger than I am.
That depends on if Leslie lets you live. I think that's how that works. No, we will always be younger than other people. That's how I look at it.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. And some people catch up real quickly.
Yes, that's true. Okay, here we go. For those of us who do one, we do a one-page storyboard in PowerPoint describing things like the graphic is here, a video is here, a quiz will be here, and mostly adopted the rapid prototyping method. Okay.
Yep, and cool. That works. That works. How does that work for you in a very large or long course? You're doing 1 page per slide, I imagine.
So let's see. So I'll just put in question marks and see what comes back.
And keeping in mind there's a delay, so there's a delay, so they'll get that question in about 15 seconds.
Yeah. Well, apparently I'm slightly more delayed than you are, and I know I've got the midget off of his online game, so I don't know what that is, but I'll just talk like this.
Yep.
The joys of live broadcast, everyone.
Yes.
So, let's see, what else? Oh, and of course with graphics, you want to explain your normal, that you wish everyone with graphics would use contrast?
You know, that's a whole show. I think we should do a show on, this is endemic to the whole freaking industry. Everywhere you go, designers are this side of morons when it comes to designing for accessibility, usability,
and readability.
And readability. I mean, we run into it all the time. I would say 80% of the websites out there are unreadable.
Not all designers, but at least we did manage to offend a small group of people today, so there we go.
There's an awful lot of, that's right, but there's an awful lot of bad design out there. Folks, light gray on light gray is not a good color combination.
No. And if you put red on blue, just shoot yourself.
Yeah, it's just awful. Now, all engineers, by the way, do red on blue. It's just a natural part of the DNA.
Stop.
And Leva, I know Leva's in the chat room probably, and she's a different kind of engineer. So
yes, not all engineers.
Yes.
Oh, and from the chat pod, we've been getting away from long courses. We take them and break them up into small 3 to 10 minute courses.
Agreed.
Awesome.
The problem is you may have 10 or 15 3 to 10 minute courses in one course. In other words, those are your lessons within a course. So you still have quite a bit of content to go through. Like, for example, the one we just did, Kirsten and I, had, I think, 6 or 7 lessons. Yeah, 6 or 7 lessons with, I think, a total of over 200 and something slides.
Yeah, I love the whole, it's only 2 pages of content, and I was sent an 80-page deck.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is only 2 pages of content. Yeah. In what universe?
Yeah.
That was amazing. My favorite part, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
My favorite part was recently, John, I think John's heard this story, but those of you who are not in the chat pod, one of the people that works in Rick's office, and we're on opposite ends of the U.S. here, contacted me and said, hey, I'm curious about this piece. And I started going into, well, in this topic, blah, 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 and that relates to this. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't realize how much of a geek I'd become about this stuff. I was like, yeah, alrighty then. I did spend a while in that material, didn't I?
Yeah.
So I'm like quoting regulations and saying, well, this percentage is this because of that. And this,
Yeah. That's why most instructional designs go into detox after heavy courses like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't realize I'd actually picked up the math to that degree because I started saying, well, that one's 6%, and that's because of such and such. I'm like, wow. Okay. I'm going to go shower now.
Well, while you do that, we've got about another minute left, and then we're going to have to take a break, and then we have our next show, which is going to be, we can't announce it here because it doesn't matter, but for the live audience, Von Klitschka is on.
Yay!
Very good artist.
Oh, and John was nice enough to look up. I cannot believe I spaced this because I've been advertising this thing for a couple weeks now, I think, but the last 3 days I was on vacation, and I literally forgot everything. So in Hartford, Andrew Trice is the Adobe evangelist that will be there, who is awesome. And he was also in Boston with Terry and Kanan Flowers.
Now, what's his...
And they were a lot of fun.
What's Andrew's product?
So he's going to be doing the web stuff, and he gets to show off the new hardware, which is going to be cool because they have a pen and a ruler now that you can draw on tablets with. And what's amazing is actually you can do technical, like clean shape drawing on a tablet.
Interesting.
You can not only do freeform stuff, but you can actually do like more schematic drawing on a tablet with these tools, more architectural stuff.
Interesting.
And really brilliant. So I've got my list of things I'm supposed to cover, and then he's got everything else. So he's got like the 90 minutes of material, and I've got my little 30. But I'm going to be obsessing about that for the next 2 weeks.
Wow, that sounds good. And any of you guys who have the Adobe Creative Cloud, they've really done some cool stuff in the last 2 weeks. In fact, Muse, we need to get Malloy on.
Yes.
Or actually, we need to get Danny Beaumont on again.
Yes, and say, Danny, please come show us all these new things, because Muse is all different.
It's totally different, but it's really cool, the things they've done. They've done a great job. They rewrote it totally.
They do that a lot. The Muse team is amazing in that they develop faster. They do more turns on a dime.
But this was a big development.
Any team I've seen.
But it was big because they not only rewrote it, and I mean rewrote it. It went from Air, an Adobe Air application, to I'm sure it's probably Visual C++ right now. It is fast now. Cool. It's really quick. I mean, when you insert a page and stuff, it's instant. Whereas before, you might have a 10, 15-second wait if your website was big. It's quick right now, and they've added color schemes and all sorts of really cool stuff. We're just getting into it. Awesome. Nice. They're really doing a great job.
Oh, and in the chat pod, so the course that he's working on now has 37 videos,
okay.
3-question quiz after each, and it's broken into 7 courses.
Okay, that sounds fun.
We modeled the first one, use that as a template, and once you get clearance on the first, start on the other 6.
Yep.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
Yes.
Good luck.
Yeah, I think the rapid templating, the rapid development piece is just a lot of people can't. Storyboards are tricky. I mean, I love them, but they have to be able to read them.
You know what? I think we're going to ask one of the people from Allen Interactions back on. They've been doing webinars on storyboarding.
Yes.
It'd be fun to get them on and have their take on how they do their storyboarding, which will tie into Michael's book, Michael Allen's book on, from Addie to Sam. Mm-hmm. I think he applies the same principles to storyboarding, so I'd like to see what they're doing in that. But anyway, folks, we appreciate you being there. It is
thanks everybody.
20 minutes to the top of the hour. We have an immediate chat coming up in 20 minutes, and we will again let's pay homage to our missing guest, who is now just a login screen.
There we go.
We will see you guys next week. Have a good one, everyone. Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Kirsten.